This is the Balancing Act by Security Compass, your guide to going fast while staying safe in today's digital world. Today we are joined by Altaz Villani from Security Compass and Ruth G. Lennon, a lecturer from the Department of Computing at the Letterkenny Institute of Technology, to talk about initiating the journey of injecting security into development. Many teams feel enormous pressure from the start to quickly understand security. In this podcast, we delve into taking a more thoughtful and deliberate approach that focuses on building a strong foundation to align your cross-functional teams.
Hello, everyone, and welcome today to our podcast. Our guest speaker today is Ruth. Ruth Lennon is from Ireland, and she comes from a very strong security background. Ruth, thank you very much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me here.
Ruth, we hear a lot about building security in, and I think it's time that we did a bit of a deeper dive on what exactly do we mean when we talk about building security in. Sometimes it's a little bit scary. Folks come in and they've got to consider all the security knowledge that's out there, and they feel the pressure that they've got to somehow get this knowledge and apply it as quickly as possible. But I think that perhaps if we take a step back, we might want to consider different levels of security awareness. Can you speak a little bit from your perspective on what you're seeing out there on this?
Yeah, I think very strongly that we as security people consider ourselves at fault. We're saying, okay, we need to have security. It needs to be built in. We need to have it in the process so that the product is right. It needs to be good from the beginning. And I think that we're a long way from that. And we're scaring people off. Instead, if we started looking at levels. So if we start saying, okay, I don't expect you to be a security expert. In fact, I don't even expect you to apply security everywhere to begin. If you can start becoming aware of security, if we can start teaching people, there could be a potential risk here. If you come across this type of product that you want to develop, maybe you should ask these people for advice. And maybe as they start to achieve that and they become aware of that, then we can say, okay, here's some of the risk factors that are involved. Here's why it's a risk. If you ever touch open source, here's some of the things that you should consider when you're considering purchasing something or when you're considering employing that piece of open source software. So whether it's commercial software or open source software, now we're beginning to raise their levels of security just by making them aware. Then you can start to teach them security, or you can start to get them to do scans. But if you say, okay, level 1, let's get everybody who's a dev to start doing code scans. Okay, why? What are all these acronyms for anyway? I have enough of my own dev acronyms to learn. Why am I being made to learn all these security acronyms? We're making it scary. Let's take it down a notch and build levels of awareness before we start jumping into levels of applicability. Let's make it, we'll take it to their level, their understanding, their terms, so we can start bringing a bit more in. We have to make them proactive about this by making them aware.
Mm-hmm. Now, whose responsibility would this be then, Ruth? We've got pressure to move at DevOps speed. We need to release quickly. And now we're talking about gradually building in security awareness for development and DevOps teams. Who oversees this? Who's accountable and who's responsible for all of this?
I think that this has to become a company or organizational priority. It has to come from the top down. It has to become one of our new goals. And we set it as a light goal that we are going to achieve greater awareness of security and applicability of security. And then you will start to see things change. You might see, okay, there are a lot of bonuses in the public industry. We can say, for one of these bonuses that you could achieve during the year, it has to be tied to security in some way, achieving this level of awareness. Now, what your defined levels of awareness are will be company defined, because there are small companies and there are large companies, and there's no point in setting a level and saying, yes, this is the level for everybody, because it just isn't going to work. So start from the top down and say the managers have to put time and money and effort behind this. Simple stages where they can say kudos for doing that. Then it'll start to come from the bottom up. If you want to get that promotion, you have to achieve a certain level. So coming from that side, then for the security people, we need to be a bit more aware of the terms about what is the devs or the architects or others priority? And how do we translate what they're seeing into our terms or our terms into their terms so that they can understand this is why we're concerned and this is what's going to cause you problems later on. I can solve a problem for you now if we do it this way. So we need to translate a bit of our language, I think. We're putting far too much pressure on, and we need to reduce that. Now, I know that there are products out there. OWASP has a lot out there, and you can say, go to the OWASP website. There's a lot of guidance. There's a lot of tools. There are, but they're using the wrong words. So we need to pull it back. Maybe we do need to simplify a bit to make it clear what the risks are.
Yeah, that's interesting. We hear a lot about proactively building security into our software, into our products. And it really starts with having a very firm foundation on which to stand on. And this implies when you first get your teams into security, making sure they understand the rationale for why they're doing things, but taking some of that pressure that they've got to know everything immediately and starting to gradually build up that proactive element of getting security in. What are your thoughts? Proactive being a gradual process of starting to emerge in terms of maturity.
I think it is. I think it has to be a very gradual process. And let's go back to what you said. We're looking at building security into product or building security into product. What about building security into mindset? Let's focus on the people rather than the process, and one would fall out of the other. Many companies have DevOps teams or DevSecOps teams. Okay, you have this wonderful team and they're going to swoop in and fix everything and they're the godsend that you need. That's not right. Each team should have a certain level so that they know when to ask advice from the architect, from the legal team, from the security team, whoever it might be. Models, let's follow that. We might have levels of awareness is one thing, but what about maturity? How mature are we with regard to security? Let's build our own level of maturity, and we set our own levels and say, how are we going to achieve that level of security maturity within this team for this next year? And what are our small goals? Don't think big. Take a few small goals and let them see that they are succeeding. Give them rewards to say, yes, I've achieved that. I am progressing here. I am learning security. I'm moving on up. My code is getting better because of this. And then we'll worry about the next level and the next level. So break it down, simplify it a bit, and set something that's achievable.
Great. And that brings us to the end of the podcast today. Thank you very much, Ruth, for joining us. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Can't get enough of the balancing act? Make sure to check out our website at www.securitycompass.com and be sure to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts for more episodes.